Welcome, Sandman Nation. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. We are the St. Louis Syndicate, and we're here to talk about the National League East baseball season predictions. Brandon, Braves, Phillies, Mets, Nats, Marlins. Who you got?
Oh, I think this is gonna be an exciting division.
Yeah?
I I
D-
I seem to
do
be the
tell.
opposite of what you're looking at here, but I think I think Philly, Atlanta, and the Mets could all be a problem for opponents this year.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the Nationals, the Marlins, they barely a baseball team, but as we go through, I think I think I would be on the over for all three of these top teams when it comes down to
Really?
it. Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
looking at
talk
the
to me then and
teams.
see what I got to do here. Maybe I got to hedge my bet on the Braves. Tell me why I have to hedge my Braves bet because I think the Braves are under, but you convince me otherwise.
I think when you look at it, what they have slowly built up across their organization is, hey, we've got a strong top of the lineup. We've got some prospects that are coming up. And then we back it up with pitching, both starting and bullpen. You know me, you start looking at this and go, hey, we've got three strong starters right off the jump to go along with anything that they can kind of coach up. Again, we're going for me, culture. Atlanta has a culture of we figure out a way to grind out games. You
Yeah.
know, uh, these three teams sit around and beat on each other every year. And we
Yep.
have
Yep.
had a solid, I don't know, what are we up to? Probably 5, 6 years of all three teams being above average.
Okay.
The Mets, they've kind of got
Oh,
their up
yep.
and down thing, but they're going out, they're spending the money, they're building the team. It's same thing with the Yankees. We win World Series or it's a giant failure. Well, look, when we're talking about over-unders, these teams being in the low 90s, I don't see why when we look at the rest of the NL and go, here are these teams that we think are just going to be hanging out at the bottom of these divisions, why Atlanta wouldn't take this nice rotation and strong hitting at the top of the order and go, we are going to be able to beat up on these bad teams and then hand it off to our completely sufficient bullpen to close these games out.
Yeah. Okay.
Where are you seeing their main failure point?
I wouldn't call it necessarily a failure point. I see that they've got three major contributors injured, and that is Sean Murphy, that is Spencer Strider, and that is Acuna Jr. And while I they have not played a full season without Acuna Jr., they played the second half of last year with him, and they were about a little bit better than 500 after he went out. Um, they're replacing a guy like Sean Murphy with a non-roster invitee. Talented kid, but I'm not sure how that fits in. Um, that's kind of what I look at when I see it. Their depth from the bench, they have nobody coming off the bench. I mean, we're talking about a backup catcher named Chadwick Trump. We're talking about their best bench guy being Brian De La Cruz, who is average at best for the Pirates. I love Chris Sale, but dude is getting old now. We're talking about
Yeah.
Verlander. We're talking about Max Scherzer territory. How much can he give them when Strider's on the bench, right? They do have other depth. They have other youth. They've got a couple of nice prospects. I I don't see them. So the Braves last year had 96 wins, and so did the Mets. I definitely see them being at 93 wins. I went under because I think the injuries. and the fact that the Phillies and the Mets are so competitive, keep the Braves from getting to that 94 number this year.
It could. I definitely I see that. I mean, I see the argument. And
It
I think
could.
of the three, they are probably the most susceptible for those reasons that you're talking about the injuries. I
Yeah. Well,
think
don't forget
there
they
is an
lost Max Fried
opportunity.
too from last year's
Yeah,
96 wins. He's a Yankee now,
yeah, yeah. But
and
it
they
seems
replaced him
like,
with Sale
yeah, who, if he's, look, everybody can get
if
injured, and
if he's
older
Chris
guys can
Sale
get injured, but like Sale has had a long history of either being lights out
or hurt.
or being banged. Like we should find out pretty early on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like
I agree with that.
with his throwing motion, he has been either this just works and I am destroying people, or this is gonna be a up and down season. So I
Agree.
think I think he's got the opportunity to lead the team, to be healthy, to again, Atlanta has this long history of being able to go find pitchers. And so
They do.
if they looked at it and went, I think he's the guy,
Yeah,
they have historically not done crazy reach things that have destroyed their team. So that's where, I trust some teams more than other teams. And I look at it and go, hey, we have this,
agreed.
low to mid 90s number, and the the wins have to go somewhere. When I look at all these other divisions and I go, that's a bunch of losses there and that's a bunch of losses, and I'd probably lean to the under. These three teams jump off the page to me to go, this may be an NL East season sort of
Okay.
thing on the
Okay.
NL side. So, that's where my head goes.
And I'm not against the Braves at all. I think that I'm thinking 90 wins is more plausible. 91 because I think the Phillies win this division. As we move on, and and look at the Phillies, I think the Phillies top to bottom are significantly stronger. I think they're going to at least meet their 96 win total, maybe in 97, 98. I think top to bottom lineup wise, they compare to the Dodgers and maybe even better than the Dodgers in some instances. Obviously, they don't have Shohei, but I'll take Bryce Harper against that and say, all right, now let's start comparing apples to apples. And when you start looking at Trey Turner, Alex Boehm, Kyle Schwarber, Max Kepler, JT Realmuto, Brandon Marsh, even as a young guy, these are some talented ball players. Philly's going to run this division, in my opinion. Um, they've got some pitching that's pretty good, right? Nola and Wheeler are anchors. Um, that doesn't take away from what we just talked about with the Braves, other than I think that that's what causes the Braves to maybe take a half a step back because they don't have their guns. They don't have their Shohei and their Harper. He's injured.
Right.
They don't have their Zach Wheeler. He's now a Yankee. Um, I, I, I think, and that's a debatable point, right? Because Chris Sale could be that guy. I don't
Good. Yeah.
trust Sale because if Sale was that good, the Red Sox would have never let him go. The White Sox would have never let him go. I think that he's old and it's he's past his prime. Where if he was on the St. Louis Cardinals, I'd be like, "What the hell are we doing with another old guy?" We'll talk about more about that in our next video. But
Well, but we used to
that's
be
how
the
I see
people that
him.
took old guys and made them into something.
Yeah, but and the Braves
You
could do that
know,
if there's
and the
any other team that
Braves,
can do that. Yes.
yeah, they're the ones that do that, and that's why it jumps out to me. Now, I definitely am with you that I think Philly ends up winning the division.
Okay.
I don't. Outside of catastrophic injuries, I'm a big
Yeah,
Harper
which
guy.
can happen.
That's my dude. I
I like Harper, man. He's
and they
fun.
have a crazy collection of people that are surrounding him to make sure that he's got the protection to do what he needs to do. Um, and then to have these pitchers, really the only thing that they have as a weakness is they've got to the bullpen's got to get worked up to something. You know,
Yeah.
you go in and you go, we've got a pretty middling bullpen. I'm assuming, you know, they're several years into this. They got to have some sort of plan. Relievers are cheap. You know, you can go pick around the edges and go find some innings there if these guys don't outplay their historical numbers. But the rest of it is just hitting bombs. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of power, and there's only so many teams that can quiet that. And so I think they end up kind of being the favorites to, exactly like you said, push back on the Dodgers.
Oh yeah. They are the pushback team. If there's one in the NL, it's them.
Yeah.
And don't discount Andrew Painter, who's in their minor leagues. Um, he's the number one organizational ranked, sixth ranked overall pitcher, 21 young guy. He's the real deal. Um, Skeens-esque. When they need pitching later in the season, um, he'll have been seasoned a little bit. And you remember the Cardinals used to do that a little bit with some of the starters. They did
Oh
it with
yeah.
Wainwright. Bring those guys up for that bullpen help if that bullpen's struggling, just to get them some major league experience and to get them in and out of the mix.
Oh, without a
I,
doubt.
I,
Yeah,
that guy adds to the whole flavor.
right. And to already have the team the way that it is, and
Yeah,
knowing that like we've got another guy or two right there that when it's time to slot them in,
yeah,
they don't have the need to rush it. So you can get started, and as long as you get rolling at the beginning, you don't have to leverage your future for now, and it sets them up to blow through, just needing to get to 92 games.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I obviously I put the play on that. So, the Mets. You like the Mets a little more than I like the Mets. The 90 for the Mets make me a tad bit nervous. Tell me what you see that makes you think, hey, Mets are it outside of their top three guys.
I think I think it's more an organizational play. I
Hmm.
I you have a nice core here, and when you go, I'm willing to just go spend what needs to be spent to make it happen. I think that if what they have doesn't push them forward, that they will be able to go get the people they need to get to make the splash. And it's kind of getting that quarterly report that goes, hey, we're going to do whatever needs to be done to get to that number,
Yeah,
and going, okay, it comes down to whether you believe in it or not. And when somebody sets up their entire organization to go, this is kind of year three of trying to get out there, it feels like the right um orientation for the team to be able to go and get the players that are necessary once they get rolling down the track. And I think it being the lowest of the three and the win total, if they don't even get to 91 wins, you you have to kind of go like, this is an abject failure of like the first round of of him coming in and trying to buy his way to the top.
yeah.
And so you
Which,
kind of have to go, I'm going to burn it down and restart. And when you're
uh,
on the back of just spending all this money to get Soto to come across town, you have to be ready to go, I'm going to pick my spot, and I'm going to pick up some more people, and we're going to propel this thing forward.
so I I believe in everything you just said. Philosophy wise, you are exactly right. The only issue that I see is where the rubber actually meets the road, and that is injuries is going to derail them, and it's started to already. And their pitching staff is super sus. I
It is right now.
the Soto splash I like, and if we go with the philosophy they're going to go get who they need, then yes, I can see where you're at getting over 91. I'm just having to base this off what I see. The loss just this week of Francisco Alvarez is significant because he played a big part last year in their wins.
Yeah.
Um, and then losing Nick Madrigal also just earlier this year with a bad shoulder. Now, I'm not saying those guys aren't going to come back because I think Alvarez will come back before the end of the season.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at their pitching
Should.
staff, and they've really power rankings wise. I mean, they don't have anybody that scares me. They definitely don't have anybody that scares the Mets or or excuse me, the Phillies or the Braves. And I'm not even certain the Nats would be scared of them. We'll get there in just a minute. Their pitching is what's going to cause them problems. I think they've done everything they can. This guy has gone out and done everything he can at the moment. If Alvarez was in that lineup, not only is it nasty, it competes with these guys. Now they've got a really, really sus guy in there at catcher, and Beatty is struggling a little bit. He needs to improve. Siri's not hitting the way he should, but the pitching staff is all it is. And the pitching staff means to me that the Mets show up with 85 wins.
It definitely I look, it would be the most Mets thing ever to go
Oh,
get Soto
totally.
and then just
Yeah.
like take a knee for the season. But I just I can't get my this is a leadership buy, a management
Hmm.
buy in my
Hmm.
mind of going you, you can't go like we're gonna build an entirely new ballpark village around our stadium. I'm gonna go spend an incredible amount of money on Soto, and then I'm just gonna go that's close enough, and he could,
But
but
to
I
your,
don't. Yeah, I just don't see
I
it.
think to your point, Soto's the right play. The build is the right play. But remember when the Phillies went and got Harper? It took them a couple years.
Yeah.
Um, and then they got nasty. I I think this is that classic Red Sox thing, right, man? They're a couple years out, in my opinion. They are not competing for the division against the Braves and the Phillies this year. They're going to battle. They're going to win some games. They're going to make some noise. If Soto was that much of a difference maker, the Yankees would have won the World Series.
Well, sure, maybe. I don't know. Like World Series things is always it's always weird, right? Because you just go like there's so many variables that go into actually being able to win,
I just got you to say 7
4 out of 7
adjectives
games.
in a row. Well,
No, it is. It's so hard to like to angle in on it's one thing when you have, at least in my mind, when you have a really strong regular season team and you get to the first round of the playoffs and then you just fall
fall apart.
apart and you go like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
that's a structural problem. But as you get deeper into the playoffs and you go like, we've had a couple of successful series, and then we get beat, you go, okay, yes, the right player at the right time can lift a baseball team through a series, but
Oh yeah.
they also can play fine, and the other team just outplay you. And so that's where I just
Yes.
go like,
Yes.
when you get to the deep playoff, there's just so many variables that go into it, and I think that um, for sure you can set your watch by if the Mets were to run way past this 91 games and just shoot way over, the
Oh yeah.
playoffs are going to be a tire fire. because they're not going to know what's going on. They're going to be
Well, they're going to
brand
get
new to
the
it.
Dodgers in the first round.
Something like that, and you're just like, you're right. They don't have, even if they go out and get the pitching to do the regular season thing, it leads me hard to believe that that's just going to skate right into the playoffs and they're just going to run off with it. That seems very likely that even if they can get there, they just get kind of walloped. And next year's really like the year for potential success in the way that the Mets are looking at success. But I see winning somewhere in the 80 games range, you know, not 80 games, but in the 80s, to be a failure on what they should be looking at this season.
That's
So
fair.
that's,
That's fair.
just kind of a vibe
No, I
thing
like it. I
there
like
for
it.
me.
This is going to be fun to watch. This one, I actually hate the Mets, and so I'm going to end up paying more attention to them this year, just based off this conversation because I want to see how that goes.
I'm very
Rounding out,
interested.
round out the NL East. The Nats are, in my opinion, a very young team and a very talented team. I think that they are going to steal some wins from some people. And I think if you put this pitching staff that they have, including their couple of young guys that they've got sitting out there in DJ Hertz and Kate Cavelli, who are just on the outside looking in, along with Josiah Gray, who's been hurt with Tommy John over a year ago. This team's got a pitching staff that's three times better than the Mets, and their bats are not as strong, right? Though they've got some young guys, Abrams, Cruz, Wood,
Sure.
young man. These guys have less than a year of service time. They got a couple of guys down in the minors that can hit the cover off the ball. They're not going to compete, right? They're not going to. These are three teams that they're facing: the Braves, Phillies, and Mets that are going to smash them in the face, and these young kids are going to learn what it's like to play Major League Baseball day in and day out, and it's going to be a hard lesson. I think 72 wins is a stretch to try to get there. I, I don't necessarily want to play the over or the under on them because young kids can be resilient and they kind of get this "I don't give a shit" attitude. And if the pitching holds up, they may sneak in and steal a few wins.
Yeah. Yeah. You could definitely, when you're dealing with this much young talent, if one or two people pop, all of a
Yeah.
sudden it pulls down the wins from the top of the division and they can skate over. But I would also just kind of lean towards the under and it taking another half a
Couple
year,
years.
year for them to kind of find, okay, these are the guys that are really going to be something for us. And um I guess these are guys that we need to continue drafting since the Nationals don't really pay people. So
No.
yeah, they're kind of, they have to figure out the young guys all at once to kind of make the run. And it seems like they have collected themselves up a reasonable number of guys that like, hey, they've got a good pedigree, you know. But yeah, I would definitely lean towards the under.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, for the Marlins, all I can say is free Sandy Alcantara. Cardinals, go get him. He was yours originally, and now he's going to sit down there and flounder in Miami. This is a
Yeah,
a rough situation that he's facing. Um, that the lineup that they're putting on is barely major league level, in my opinion. It's a
yeah,
little disappointing when you look at it that this is the team they're going to try to field, top to bottom. There's nothing positive to talk about in this group. In the overall power rankings, they have one guy in the top 200, and everybody else is above that. Um, from a starting pitcher perspective, they have Sandy, and that's it. And then in the bullpen, they've got two guys in the top 100. Other than that, and they have nobody to talk about. And they're minor league. You think they'd be full of minor leaguers? They're not. They're weak. I mean, they do not have a strong system. I'm not sure where this team is going. I don't know if they're trying to move to Nashville. I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do, but this is not baseball that they're doing. And 63 wins is high.
Yeah, they're
I'm
just not
actually
spending
considering
money, you know?
this needs to be probably significantly lower. And I don't know, is this Jeter fallout? I mean, I'm a massive Jeter fan from a baseball perspective, but did he do damage to this organization and then left? Did he trade away some of the top talent in that organization and not get returns on investment? I don't quite understand what's going on, but it's ugly.
Yeah. It seems very bare. Um, and they just have a history of we are fine running out, especially a lineup that is just nine guys.
Yeah.
And um you I you know, not even elite pitching fixes that problem. So
No.
um yeah, I think this is just one of those teams like Colorado where you just go, there's no plan here. I'd love to bang the under, but like, who knows? That maybe some of these guys play. I don't, 63 is bad, but like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I guess you could get up over that if you
Uh-uh.
hit a couple of streaks, but it just
I don't see it
there's
happening.
nothing
Not
in the numbers that point in that direction
and that right there helps the Braves, Phillies, and Mets get to those over numbers
for
because they're
sure.
gonna just pound on the Marlins.
That's definitely what jumps to mind when you go, we got the Nationals and the Marlins sitting right here, and one's young and the other one seems to not be trying.
Yeah,
So these other three should just be able to pick them off.
man, you would think. So that's our wrap up. Brandon likes the Braves and the Mets and the Phillies. I like the Phillies. I'm okay on the Braves and the Mets, not so much. Nationals are young, Marlins are terrible. Good luck with your bets. I mean, hopefully we gave you enough to go on.
Cheers.